Down here, Vagabond Buddha. I'm in Nha Trang, Vietnam. Just finished my run. Walking along the beach. Enjoying the natural beauty. The sand here is, I would say, like California sand. And there isn't all that plastic you see in most Southeast Asia beaches. I suspect since it's one ocean, a lot of it is just cleaned up. So it's nice to be somewhere that when you're not surrounded by plastic that'll be around for 500 years. So that's something humanity has to figure out, how to use that stuff or quit making it. During my run, I was thinking about how just being present to perception and being present to the, perception itself is such a beautiful experience, and how when the mind speaks into that, how the attention can go to whatever mood, if you will, the mind's thought or imagination conjures up, and that can bring you with your attention. If you give attention to that, will bring you wherever it's going, or you can just let it float by like a cloud. And the difference, depending on what you're imagining or thinking, whatever your mind is imagining or thinking versus just perception itself, is extreme. And that's why gurus, the Buddha, and I sense my personal experience of Jesus' writings or words he said, not what people said about him, but what he said, is that he was living, that he had access to this space. I think that's one of the reasons he could be present while he was walking with a cross that he knew he'd be nailed to eventually, because he was present to all the perception around him rather than his fear, which was, he was listening to his mind, who would have created. And so he was, in a way, he was present to God rather than his own fear or anger or sadness because of the betrayal that led him to that fateful day. And I don't, some people prefer one religion over another. Some people say that one religion is good and the others are bad. Some people are willing even to kill other people because they believe they have the right religion and the others have the wrong. And but to me, there's just one. There's one consciousness. There's one God, and we have different languages. We have different texts. But to the extent those texts don't follow the love or the joy that's present when you live in awareness, my proposition is that those energy forms that exist in text or spoken word, regardless of what religion, that are inconsistent with the joy of being, that is, I believe, is is the one source or God if you're religious. I think that to the extent that anyone's saying anything inconsistent with that or judging the other for not being a part of their religion or whatever negativity they're spilling into the consciousness space, I don't really believe that they're speaking for their own God. I think they're speaking from their personality or their mind. Humans like to form teams. They're like there's an us team and a them team. And it's the human mind that really loves that, because if you're around people that are confirming what you believe, in some sense your personality is being acknowledged and you're being rewarded, and even if your thought or behavior is not consistent with what your God meant or is saying, but is more consistent with words or speech of others that really don't understand the God you worship, people still are comfortable with that because they're part of a group that approves of that language or those conditions, or approves of judging the other. So the beauty of coming to live in present moment awareness, or coming to live in perception, is not only the joyfulness that it gives or the relationship that you have with the source of energy, if you will, that creates all the perceivable light and sound and other waves. In a sense, we're living in a domain that is created, if you will, from that source, which, if you're religious, would be God's thoughts almost. Thought imagined the world into being. And that's God's thought, so it's not the painful kind that we have. It's just pure, joyful consciousness. And many people are willing to conjecture why God gave us choice to be, if you will, to make joyful choices or sad choices in our life. But to me, that's just a point of another point of argument. I think the better thing to do if you're going to spend time would be to just be in God's presence, or be in perception's presence, and to hear the thoughts you have about who's right and who's wrong as they float by. To the extent your mind thinks or says anything useful in making decisions, albeit take that into account. But I think if you integrate it with the joyfulness of just being, and you hear it as a cloud floating by as an idea, then some of the partisanship that is integrated into that thought, if you will, it becomes transparent to you, and you're maybe able to see things from a more neutral, or maybe neutral is the wrong word, but a more integrated, joyful sort of perspective, from which proper action can occur. If anything's required, often nothing's required. Often we're just monitoring joyfulness. We're not monitoring, we're being in joyfulness. So, I don't know what the point is of this. Is just religion is a interesting story, and when you live in your mind, you like stories. It helps you organize things that might seem chaotic otherwise. But to the extent that you believe anything that's contrary to the joy of perception itself, you're moving away from God and not towards God. And so in that sense, you almost need to take your internal temperature. And living should be a process of taking internal temperature rather than the process of believing a moment by moment opinion that carries a hurtful or painful energy with it that is ungodlike, if you will. So that's it for now, folks. Thanks for listening. Really loving Vietnam. It's a beautiful place. Put it on your bucket list.